Manchester United reportedly making contact with Kieran McKenna's representatives if Erik ten Hag is sacked as the Manchester United manager. Olise might become our first signing of the summer season. We'll be talking about that. And will Bruno Fernandes sign a new contract? These are some of the stories we will be discussing on this evening's show. But before we get into that, please smash a like on today's video. Let's go for 200 likes on this evening's show. And if this is your first time watching the channel, please subscribe as well. We will be live throughout the whole of the transfer window, in the morning, in the evening, and if anything breaks during the day, I will go live as well. So make sure you subscribe for all of your latest Manchester United transfer news and talk. Right. Loads and loads to get into on the show this morning. It seems to be non-stop being a Man United fan at the moment. Every single time I put my phone down to try and have a bit of relaxation, another story comes out. Another manager's being linked. Yeah, it's absolutely mental, isn't it? But before we get into all of that, there is some breaking news that I want to jump into really, really quickly and react to on the spot. There's a story coming out right now that apparently an unnamed club has paid Brighton £4.3 million as compensation to sign Roberto De Zerbi as their new manager. It says everything is already done, but there is a maximum confidentiality about who the club is. I mean, what is going on here? That is absolutely mad. Obviously, Man United have been mentioned in this story, as you would expect, because people think Erik ten Hag's going to be sacked. But Roberto De Zerbi leaving Brighton, it was made out to us that it was, upon mutual consent and he wasn't going to get another job and he's going to go and relax at home for 3 months. Apparently, Roberto De Zerbi is about to start at another club, an unnamed club, a mysterious club. Somebody has paid his release clause to Brighton, but it is yet to be revealed who it is going to be. Just a quick one as well, just to bring a bit of a smile on your face as well, just to hopefully give you a bit of cheer today. It looks like Vincent Kompany is going to become the new Bayern Munich manager. I mean, who would have thought that happened 6 months ago? They were rejected by Nagelsmann, rejected by Ralf Rangnick, rejected by Xabi Alonso, tried to get Thomas Tuchel to stay, and then he rejected them. And now it looks like Bayern Munich, one of the biggest clubs in world football, are going to end up with Vincent Kompany, who just got Burnley relegated from the Premier League. I mean, what the hell is going on with football? And I just wonder to myself, right, when there's Man United fans out there screaming for Erik ten Hag to be sacked, and Bayern Munich, who are at the moment a much better football team than us, with better players, better board, and probably more money at the moment, are having to appoint Vincent Kompany as their manager. They've gone from Thomas Tuchel to Vincent Kompany, and some people in the fan base are screaming for Erik ten Hag to be sacked. Just understand the position that we're in. There is no managers out there. That's why Vincent Kompany is going to go to Bayern. It's literally laughable, isn't it? I feel a little bit sorry for Bayern Munich, to be honest. Like, they obviously thought getting rid of Thomas Tuchel was going to be a positive for them, but I think it's backfired massively. Let's see what people are saying in the chat. Malp says it's Bayern. Mate, it's not Bayern Munich. It looks like Bayern Munich have got Vincent Kompany. That's what's just been reported a couple of minutes ago. What else have we got? What else have we got here? Let's have a look. All right, let's talk a little bit about Kieran McKenna then, because I can see a lot of people in the chat this evening going crazy, saying, where's this story come from? Have I made this up? I just want to make something really, really clear ahead of the transfer window, okay? Because there's going to be so much news around Man United throughout the transfer window. I am a normal football fan like you. I'm not a journalist. I'm not a reporter. I'm not some football... I don't work in football. I'm just like you. I have a passion for football. I've made a YouTube channel to speak in front of it, to share my opinions, but also to give you all of the latest news around Man United. That is the purpose of this channel. So just to be very, very clear, I am not a journalist, and every story, every headline, every title in the video is come from a source, right? Which is public knowledge. You can find these stories yourself. So it's not me sitting here claiming that I've spoken to Kieran McKenna down at the local McDonald's and he's, told me secretly that he's going to become the new Man United manager. That's not something you're going to get on this channel. I'm not going to pretend I have sources. I'm not going to pretend I know more than you. I don't. I just have a passion for the club and have made this channel. Right. Anyway, now that I've addressed that, I hope everyone didn't find that too... I'm not trying to be aggressive or whatever. I just want to make that clear, because I think there's a lot of people who leave comments and they say, where are you getting these stories from? You're making it up. Like, why would I do that? Anyway, so the story is this, and it's coming from Samuel Luckhurst, who is, whether you like it or not, a big journalist. He's got over 600,000 followers. He's the Manchester United correspondent for the Manchester Evening News. Yes, he's put out some trash stories, slagging off Rasmus Højlund and stuff. But the thing you have to remember with everything that these journalists put out, somebody will have given them that story. Okay? So when he put out the story about Rasmus Højlund, saying that people didn't want to pass him the ball and they thought that he wasn't very good, somebody will have given him that information. Someone. We don't know who. I don't think journalists on that level would just put out lies, personally. It might be a family member of a player who's not getting played. It might be the agent of a player who's not getting played. Like, there's so many different possible outcomes when these stories come out. But in relation to the story that's just broke this evening, again, just so everybody knows where the stories come from and they don't think I'm making it up, Samuel Luckhurst on the Manchester Evening News website, he's in all the press conferences. He sits a metre in front of Erik ten Hag every single press conferences and has the what's the word? He's allowed to ask Erik ten Hag questions, okay? He's putting out a story saying that apparently Manchester United have been in contact with Kieran McKenna's representatives about becoming the new manager should they decide to change Erik ten Hag this summer. So they've been in contact, and that's what the video title says. It says Kieran McKenna contact, official Kieran McKenna contact, right? He then goes on to say that Manchester United have expressed interest in Ipswich Town Kieran McKenna. He has emerged as the front runner as well for the Brighton job, though. So he's in hot demand, which is, I think, completely fair. He's taken Ipswich from the League One to the Championship to the Premier League back to back. That's impressive. Whether you think he's a good manager or not, whether, you know, people will say, oh, he's a PE teacher like they did with Ollie, that's up to you. But from the outside looking in, Kieran McKenna is clearly a very good manager. To get back-to-back promotions from League One to the Championship to the Premier League is difficult. That's a real achievement. I know it's not a trophy. I know it's not, you know, the Champions League, but that is difficult. Answer me this. Like, I mean, he probably would, but do you think Pep Guardiola going to Ipswich Town would immediately get Ipswich to the Premier League with the resources that Ipswich Town had? He hasn't spent any money. He's had the same squad in the Championship as what he had in League One, and he's got them straight to the Premier League. That is incredible, and I respect that a lot. But do I think he should become the Manchester United manager? I'll say this. If it's between him and Thomas Tuchel, I probably would take Kieran McKenna. Genuinely. I think Kieran McKenna is a better manager for the long run. Whereas I think Thomas Tuchel would come in, he'd probably do well for like one season, he'd fall out with the players, with the club, and then he'd get sacked. Whereas I understand, like, Kieran McKenna, there is a long-term vision there, but I'm not fully convinced that he's, you know, somebody who's going to be winning us Premier Leagues and Champions Leagues, personally. He has the potential to, definitely, but I don't think there's any kind of guarantee. It's also worth noting as well, quickly, Chelsea are apparently interested in him as well. This is on the Guardian's website in the UK. Again, a very, very reliable newspaper here in the UK. That apparently Chelsea are looking to replace Mauricio Pochettino with Kieran McKenna. I mean, that's mad, isn't it? You've got Chelsea, Brighton and Man United all contacting Kieran McKenna's representatives about him potentially coming in as their new manager. I mean, that's absolutely mental. What I will say is this. Fair play to the guy. He was an absolute laughingstock when he left Man United as Ollie's assistant. People were calling him a PE teacher. People were saying he was a disgrace. Players were coming out saying that the training sessions were embarrassing. And I think the biggest problem for me with Kieran McKenna, right, is that we have a team full of egos. We have a team full of players who think they're better than they are. Imagine Kieran McKenna walks into that dressing room. Some of the players will have been here under Ollie. Some of the players probably threw Ollie under the bus and got him sacked. And Kieran McKenna was part of that team. He was Ollie's assistant manager or his assistant coach, whatever you want to call it, right? So imagine this guy walks back into the Manchester United dressing room. He looks around. He sees Luke Shaw, Maguire, Rashford, Bruno, McTominay, Lindelof. Like, the list goes on and on and on and on of the players who were here under Ollie and are still here now. So many. And he looks at those players and he expects them to respect. He expects those players to respect him. I don't think they would. It doesn't seem like they respect Erik ten Hag sometimes. They didn't respect Jose Mourinho, who is one of the greatest managers of all time. How on earth do we expect these players to respect Kieran McKenna? Now, that doesn't mean that he's not a good manager. That doesn't mean that he shouldn't become the Man United manager in the future. I just think that it all boils back down to the players. We've got a team of players who think they're world class and most of them are average. We've got a team who, threw Jose Mourinho under the bus. They threw Ole Gunnar Solskjaer under the bus. They've at points tried to throw Erik ten Hag under the bus. Like, do you really think Kieran McKenna can go in there and command that dressing room? I don't think so personally. But, and I think that's why we have a big problem here, because if we had a really young team of 8 or 9 players who were 18, 19, who had won nothing, I think Kieran McKenna or someone like that could come in and do really well. It's the same with Erik ten Hag, though. I think a lot of these players think they're better than Erik ten Hag. Cristiano Ronaldo, for example, he came out in an interview and said that he didn't even know who Erik ten Hag was and all of this stuff. The same about Ragnick, A lot of these players think they're a lot better than they are. Fran says, we should go for Thomas Tuchel and Kieran McKenna should go to West Ham. Maybe. Everyone who's just joined the video, by the way, please smash a like. Let's try and see 200 likes on this evening's show. We're very, very close to 22,000 subscribers as well. So if this is your first time watching, please do hit the subscribe button. Throughout the transfer window, as I said, we'll be live in the morning and in the evening every single day. So if you like to have a like-minded community where other people's opinions are respected, then make sure you subscribe and get involved. Let's see what else people are saying. Rajat says, who wants a Carrick type coach? Hell no. Well, you got to remember, right? Carrick and McKenna were here when Jose was here. Carrick and McKenna were here when Ole Gunnar Solskjaer was here. So they've already been here at Man United for years, and they didn't really succeed, did they? Richard says, what has Kieran McKenna won? He's won nothing as a manager. Nothing. But he has been involved in winning sides. You've got to remember. He was the assistant manager from 2018 to 2022. So before Erik ten Hag came in, he was the assistant manager at Man United. Albeit that was when Ole Gunnar Solskjaer was here. He has been around football for a long time. He was at Tottenham for a while. He was the under-18s manager at Tottenham, the under-18s manager at Man United. He clearly knows his football. I'm just not convinced that these players, who, let's be honest, are overpaid and think they're better than they are going to look at Kieran McKenna and feel inspired. I just personally don't think it would happen. And that's why I've said for a long time, I think, for me, if you're going to change the manager, I don't think any of these managers that we're linked to would kind of be respected by the players. Do we really think Roberto De Zerbi's going to come in and be respected? I don't think so. Do you really think Thomas Tuchel's going to come in? He'll probably fall out with the players. That's why I said before, I think the only kind of manager who could come in and really, really command that dressing room would be somebody like a Carlo Ancelotti, or somebody like maybe a Zidane, or, like a Jurgen Klopp or a Pep Guardiola. Somebody who walks into that dressing room and says, I've won this many league titles. I've won the Champions League. I've won this. What have you won? And then you've got, Harry Maguire sat there with one League Cup in his 30 years of football. You've got Marcus Rashford there who thinks he's Mbappe, who's won, the League Cup and the FA Cup. You need somebody with that presence where there's not even an argument. You walk in and it's like, oh my God, it's Carlo Ancelotti. Or, oh my God, it's Pep Guardiola. Or, oh my God, it's Jurgen Klopp. Do you see where I'm going with this? And I think as good of a coach Kieran McKenna is, and as an incredible job he's done at Ipswich, I just don't think he would gain the respect of the players, which again shows our failings as a football club, that we've got players here who think they're better than they are. They're on massive contracts. They feel like they're untouchable. They're probably worth more from a brand's perspective than they are from their footballing perspective. And that's where we are. Malp says the quality of managers at the moment is really bad. Mate, it is really bad, yeah. There isn't that many elite coaches, I don't think, anymore. I think a lot of it is down to the players' mentality. It's down to the hunger of the players. It's down to whether the players have got a big contract yet. There's so many factors in football now as to how to get a successful team. And I think, Man City are the biggest example of that. They bring in players who are hungry, players who have something to prove, and players who then work for the manager, If you look at some of their signings over the last kind of few years, they got Ndoku. I don't think many people had heard of him before he came. They got in people like Ruben Dias. They got in people like Rodri. These are all known players, but they're not superstars. It's not even Kevin De Bruyne. When they signed Kevin De Bruyne, he wasn't the player he is now. They turned him into that player. Whereas Man United signed people like Casemiro, Varane, Di Maria, Falcao, Cavani, Ronaldo, Jadon Sancho. We sign all of these players who have this massive ego, this massive brand around them. They have people in their ear telling them that, they're better than they are, and that and that Ralph Ragnick shouldn't be telling them what to do and all the rest of it, which is maybe fair. I mean, should Ralph Ragnick be telling Cristiano Ronaldo what to do? Probably not. But that's how football works. You have to listen to your manager. And if you don't, it's all going to break down. And that's where we are, that's how we are in this position we are, because the Glazers effectively over the last 10 years have signed players based on their value off the pitch. They've signed players based on how many likes they're going to get on an Instagram post, what new brand deals they're going to get in, I don't know, in Brazil or, in Argentina or whatever it might be, what more money they can bring into the club. That's been the Glazers' plan. It's been their strategy. Whereas now, my expectation is that Ineos bring in young, hungry footballers. We're talking people like Michael Olise. We're talking like people like Todibo, Amadou Onana. Like these types of people, young players, hungry, players who want to come in and prove something. Opposed to, this summer we could be like, right, we're going to go and sign, I don't know, I'm trying to think of an example off the top of my head. I can't think of an example, I'm sorry. But, go and sign some old player who's in his 30s just because he's going to sell us shirts. Like, Man United don't need to do that anymore. We need to rebuild our squad. This is a really good point, actually. Somebody in the comments has said, this is coming from Don Bertram. He says, sadly, the fact is that Ineos know it's way easier to get rid of the manager than it is to get rid of 12 players. Mate, you're 100% right there. 100% right. And that's why I think sticking with Erik ten Hag is 100% the correct decision, because if Ineos sack Erik ten Hag, they're taking the easy option. They are. All of these players who should be leaving will get a second chance. They'll get another go under a new manager, under the hope that things will change. And it won't. We've seen this pattern happen time and time and time again. Maybe the pattern could be broken if it's like an Ancelotti, or obviously it's a stupid example, but a Jurgen Klopp or a Pep Guardiola. Like if one of those types of managers was going to come in now, I'm sure, we might see a slight improvement in these players, right? But if you bring in someone like Roberto De Zerbi, how is he going to suddenly make Harry Maguire fast? How is he going to make Casemiro fast? Like, some players, Christian Eriksen is another example. He's 32 now? He can barely last half a game of football. He can barely run. Like, it doesn't matter how good of a manager you are. You can't suddenly coach a player to be fast again. Nabil says Zinedine Zidane would be a good manager for United. Yeah, Zinedine Zidane, even though I want Erik ten Hag to stay, obviously Zidane would be an exciting name. I think he'd go in there. He'd command the dressing room. He's won more trophies as a player than probably the whole team combined. And he's won more trophies as a manager than probably the whole team combined. So, he would literally walk in there and command that dressing room. Whereas, Kieran McKenna, Roberto De Zerbi, Graham Potter, Thomas Tuchel, maybe not Thomas Tuchel, I think he's kind of in the middle, but Graham Potter, Gareth Southgate, Roberto De Zerbi, Kieran McKenna, like, are you really telling me that these players who don't run, they don't track back, they say they play for the badge, but they clearly don't, are going to suddenly be inspired by Roberto De Zerbi or inspired by Graham Potter, who was sacked from Chelsea and left with nothing, or Gareth Southgate, who's been the England manager with the best England side in my lifetime and has won nothing? Like, they're not going to be inspired, and they'll throw another manager under the bus, and they'll say this manager doesn't know what he's doing. He's, his coaching's bad, blah, 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 blah. You can already see it written. Whereas imagine if, I don't want to single people out, but imagine if, I don't know, I don't want to single names out because I think it's unfair, but imagine if one of the players came out saying that Carlo Ancelotti didn't know what he was doing in training. You'd be like, you're literally having a laugh. This man is a serial winner. And I think it's just, it's almost a form of bullying, really, isn't it? In some ways. I know that maybe seems a little bit soft, but it does feel a little bit like that. That they know that an Ollie or a Ten Hag or someone, they know that they can kind of come out and leak stories, and people will come out saying, oh, the job is too big for Erik ten Hag. He couldn't make the jump from the Eredivisie. He must go, blah, blah, blah. Like, that seems to be how it works. Whereas, that wouldn't happen with someone like an Ancelotti or a Pep or a Jurgen Klopp, because obviously they've achieved a lot in football. But yeah. Let's see what else people are saying in the comment section then quickly. Digital Sports Update says we should get rid of all the players that don't have the mentality to be a Man United player. I agree. Rajat says, I don't want Olise. He is average. We should get Yoro. I've not heard of Yoro. I'll have a look. Malp says there is literally no top managers out there to replace Erik ten Hag. I want a new manager so badly, but I can't see it happening. I think that's a really good point there. Obviously, I respect everyone's opinions. Some people are desperate for Erik ten Hag to be sacked, which is fine. I get it. Like, it's been a terrible season. Life is short. People want to watch football and enjoy it, and Man United isn't enjoyable to watch anymore. I get that. I understand your pain 150%. Like, I'm numb to the pain now. My expectations from Man United are so low that I go into every single game thinking we're not going to win. And that's how I've softened the pain. Because I think the worst one for me was last season when we lost against Brentford 4-0. Like, I literally for about a week afterwards felt so low, so down. And it really, really got to me. You know, you spend so much time, money, going to games, whatever. You spend so much time supporting a club and you give it 150% of your support. And then they just put out performances like that. And I think ever since then, my expectations are at rock bottom now. Which is frustrating, but it is what it is. Let's see what else people are saying in the chat. Everyone who's just joined, can you smash a like? Let's try and hit 200. Let's try and hit 200 likes on today's video. We've got over 200 people watching already. So if you are, if you haven't liked the video yet, what are you doing? Give it a quick like. Oh, sorry, everyone. Sorry. I think the hay fever is really bad here in the UK today. But yeah, let me know in the comments section, guys. Would you like to see Kieran McKenna as the next Manchester United manager? We have had a poll running on the channel. 31% of you say yes, you would like to see Kieran McKenna as the manager. 69% of you say no, you wouldn't. So there you go. I would probably say no to Kieran McKenna. Purely because I just don't think it will work. I think he is a good manager. I just don't think these players will respect him. I don't think they'll fear him. I don't think they'll look up to him. I don't think they'll be inspired by him. And I think that these players need that. They need someone to be feared. They need someone to look up to. They need someone that they can't argue back with. Someone that, can sit there and say, how many Champions Leagues have you won? None. Okay, well, I've won 4 or whatever, Yeah. Alan says, if Munich want Erik ten Hag, then we shouldn't sack him, especially if we have no money. Mate, it looks like Vincent Kompany's going to be going to Bayern Munich, apparently. So, that's mad. That just sums up the managerial situation at the moment. You've got Bayern Munich, the biggest club in Germany, one of the biggest clubs in world football, who got to the semi-final of the Champions League this season, and they're having to go for Vincent Kompany as their manager. And I think that's just why I'm so like Erik ten Hag in, because I think it's so easy to say sack the manager, but there isn't any obvious option out there. I don't want to keep going back to this guy, but if Carlo Ancelotti was available now, right, had just won the Champions League with Real Madrid, say Carlo Ancelotti was leaving Real Madrid at the end of the season and was available, it would be almost impossible for me to sit here and argue that Erik ten Hag should stay after our season and that we shouldn't go for Carlo Ancelotti. But that's not reality. I hear people on like Talk Sport and stuff, and they're like, sack Erik ten Hag, sack him now, sack him, calling up. And then the presenters will say, who do you want to be the next manager? And they're like, we should go and get Ancelotti. And I'm thinking, like, are you hearing yourself? One, we're not even linked to Ancelotti. And two, he's in the Champions League final with he's got one of the best squads in world football. He's just about to sign Mbappe. And you honestly think that Ancelotti would come to Manchester United? Like, it's not going to happen. And that's why we're linked to Gareth Southgate and Graham Potter and Kieran McKenna. And I'll be honest with you, they're all laughable names. I'm sorry, they are. They're not of the level of Man United. Remember how excited we were when Erik ten Hag came in? Everyone in the fan base was like, Erik ten Hag's going to be amazing. Man City wanted him. Liverpool wanted him. He was widely sought after, and we were all absolutely buzzing. We were all so happy about Erik ten Hag coming in. Does anybody honestly have that same feeling about any of these managers that we're linked to? Can you honestly say that, sat at home tonight, that a Gareth Southgate, a Graham Potter, a Kieran McKenna, or even a Thomas Tuchel or a De Zerbi, do you have that same feeling you had in the build-up to when Erik ten Hag became the Man United manager? Because I definitely do not. I'm sorry. I can't just pretend that I do. I was so happy and so excited about Erik ten Hag coming in. He was such a sought-after manager. And it was 100% the right decision to remove Ollie, knowing that Erik ten Hag was going to come at the end of the season. Lumen says, Kieran, not sacking Erik ten Hag is one thing, but giving him a new contract is a whole nother thing. I get that, mate. I do. But you also have to see it from an Erik ten Hag's perspective. He's got 1 year left of his contract. There are multiple clubs who need a new manager. Juventus, Bayern Munich, Barcelona maybe. Like, there are 3 or 4 top clubs out there looking for a new manager. Of course, Erik ten Hag's going to want reassurances, and I don't blame him for that. Imagine if you were at a job, you had 1 year left of your job, and your boss wouldn't tell you if they're going to keep you on. Of course, that you'd be unhappy about that, especially if there was other clubs or other businesses out there who wanted to bring you in. But yeah, let's move on to something else, though. I've spent 25 minutes talking about Kieran McKenna, which was unexpected, but that's fine. Let's have a look. Let's have a quick look in the chat. Somebody in the chat says, I think Erik ten Hag can deliver, but we've got to give him a 5-year project. I'll be honest with you, mate. I think that's probably realistic. I honestly think that's realistic. Think about this now. Not Arsene Wenger, Arteta. He's been at Arsenal for 5 years. He's won 1 trophy. And he's only really challenging in his 4th and 5th year. Erik ten Hag's in his 2nd year. So if we're looking at Arsenal as an example, right? Arsenal have been just as bad as us in the last kind of 10 years, haven't they? For Erik ten Hag to replicate what Arteta's done, he doesn't challenge next year. He challenges the year after. In his 4th year. Arteta didn't even get top 4 until his 4th year. And look where they are now. Do you think any of the Arsenal fans want Arteta to be sacked? I'm sure there is a small minority of people who say it just for clicks and just for laughs. But Morland says Ineos should do what Arsenal did for Arteta. I agree with you, mate. Malp says the only manager I rate is Ruben Amorim from Sporting Lisbon. Yeah, Ruben Amorim's a really interesting option. Like, we've not really been linked to him though, mate, at all. I've not seen us linked to Ruben Amorim much at all recently. I think he would be an interesting option, but again, can you honestly sit there tonight and tell me that Ruben Amorim is a better manager based on what you've seen at him at Sporting Lisbon than what Erik ten Hag was when he was at Ajax? I don't think so. But yeah, you just don't know. It's very, very difficult. He obviously is a good manager. He's done well at Sporting Lisbon. What else have we got? Right, let's talk about Michael Olise really quickly then, shall we? I probably will keep the video to about half an hour again because I think any longer than that is a bit too much. So yeah, Fabrizio Romano has been talking about Michael Olise and he says this. He says Manchester United consider Olise as one of the players they would like to sign in the summer transfer window, but they know there is going to be a lot of competition because Olise is on the list of many clubs. He says Chelsea wanted Olise 1 year ago. Now there is interest also from other clubs, including Newcastle and Arsenal. So it's going to be a busy one for Olise. I mean, Olise is supposedly a Man United fan. I'll be honest with you guys. If I'm Michael Olise and you've got Newcastle, maybe not Newcastle, you've got Arsenal and Chelsea sniffing around, I would probably go to Arsenal personally. They finished 2nd. They're in the Champions League. And you never know. Olise might come in and Anthony might be starting every game next year and Olise might be on the bench. Like, Man United do some weird things. But would I like to sign Olise? I think he'd be a good option. But I think if Olise comes in, you've got to get rid of Anthony. You've got to get rid of Sancho. You've got to get rid of Greenwood. Like, we need to get out some of these wingers. You probably need to get rid of Pellistri as well. And then you just have Ahmad and... what's his name? Ahmad and Olise would be your right wingers. And Garnacho and Rashford would be your left wingers. That's what would need to happen for me because it's all good and well signing Olise, but if you've still got Anthony sniffing around, you've still got Pellistri sniffing around, maybe Jadon Sancho comes back as well, maybe, unlikely, but maybe, then it's pointless. It's a waste of money. So, yeah, we need to get money for Sancho, we need to get money for Greenwood, we need to get money for Pellistri, and we need to do something with Anthony. I don't know what. Digital Sports Update says Erik ten Hag is a better manager than Arteta. I mean, he's achieved more in his career than Arteta has. Arteta's won 1 trophy in his whole career. And he's seen as some people say he's the best manager in the world after Pep Guardiola. I mean, it's absolutely laughable. He's won 1 trophy in 5 years as a manager. And that was the FA Cup. Whereas Erik ten Hag, who some people say is a fraud, he's not good enough, get rid of him. He won the Eredivisie 3 years in a row. He won the League Cup in his first year in English football. He won the Dutch Cup twice. Like, he's clearly a good manager. Yeah. Lubin says, what about Kudos? Would he not cost less than 50 million? Maybe give West Ham McTominay and Maguire. Maybe. I don't think West Ham will sell Kudos. I think they've got their new manager coming in, Lopetegui. I think there'll be, yeah, I don't think Kudos is going to be going anywhere, to be honest with you. But the final story is on Bruno Fernandes. So let's do that really quickly before I go and have my dinner. And the headline this evening is that apparently Bruno Fernandes wants a new contract at Manchester United. The Ineos are hesitant about it because effectively Bruno is going to be, I think, 30 in a month. I think he's got 2 years left of his deal. And giving him a long-term contract on bigger wages is kind of the same thing as what the Glazers used to do, you know? Bruno is definitely a good player, but he's not a player for the future. He's a player for now. And in the now, we're a team finishing 8th. Next season, we might get top 4, best case scenario. The year after that, hopefully we'll be 2nd or 3rd, you know? Like that's a realistic step. And is handing out a massive new contract to Bruno Fernandes the right decision? I don't think so, personally. He's got 2 years left of his deal. By the time his contract expires, he's going to be 32. I think at that point, you probably let him go when he's 32, realistically. I don't think giving him a 4-year contract at the age of 32 is really a sensible option. But let me know what you guys think. What would you do with Bruno Fernandes? His current deal expires. Yeah, I mean, his deal expires in 2026, right? So he's got 2 years left of his contract. And then there's the option for a further year. So effectively, he's got 3 years left. He's going to be 30 in September. So by the time his contract expires, Bruno Fernandes will be 33. I mean, by that point, he's definitely not going to be at the level we require, I don't think. So yeah, I would move him on at that point. I'm going to wrap up the video here, guys. Thank you very much for joining me on the show this morning. I will be back tomorrow at 11 a.m. If you have enjoyed today's video, please smash a like before you go. Subscribe as well. One comment I want to respond to again, because people don't seem to understand how these types of channels work. Somebody in the chat, Dominic, has said, where on earth do you get your news from? Every single story we bring to you on the show, I tell you where the story comes from. Kieran McKenna's story came from Samuel Luckhurst. 600,000 followers on Twitter. He's in every single Manchester United press conference, and he writes for the biggest newspaper in Manchester. So that's where that one came from. Olise, Fabrizio Romano, probably the biggest or most well-regarded sports journalist in world football. And the Bruno Fernandes one, where did that come from? Let's have a look. That again came from Manchester Evening News. As I'll say to you one more time, I don't want to have to keep repeating this throughout the summer. I'm not a journalist. I tell you where all of the stories come from. I bring you the news. We discuss them. Some of them are seen as absolute garbage and we chuck them in the bin, and others have more legs to them. But I hope you understand how this works now. Some people probably don't seem to understand, which is fine. That's no problem. But I'll be back at 11 a.m. regardless. I'm not going anywhere. Have a great evening, everybody. Please do like the video on your way out. Subscribe to the channel if you're new. And I'll speak to you all at 11 a.m. tomorrow.